What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another retro Yu-Gi-Oh video and back with another Lightsworn Format video, the format right before Edison format in February 2010, using the September 2009 ban list and a card pool that's basically identical to Edison. There's some minor differences that you can check out in one of my other videos going over the card pool for it. But yeah, this thing is basically Edison with a different ban list. And because of that different ban list, there are different decks that become better and worse. One of the decks that becomes a lot better is Lightsworn, as you can probably tell by the name of the format. The reason for that is you've got things like Triple Charge with the Light Brigade at 3 copies, which is kind of wild. Which gives this deck a lot of consistency, sets up a graveyard really well. You also have Triple Honest as well. You just got so much for this deck. And it really is a very, very good deck in the format. Now, is it tier 0? I'd say not. I mean, in the tournament we had for it, which was a small tournament to be granted. But in that tournament, this deck did not win. But, you know, maybe it was just the list that people were on. I mean, I looked through the list that people brought, and I thought they each had their own merits, but none of them really sort of fit what I wanted to do with the deck for this video. So I sort of took a core that was used by the Duelist Dump Truck, and I sort of switched out a couple things to add in things like Chaos Sorcerer and also Dark Arm Dragon, because I think this deck can play them, you know. If they get milled, it's too bad, but if you do draw them, you're likely going to mill late in dark for Chaos Orc, and you can modulate the darks in your graveyard with Plague Spreader and Necrogardna. So these cards are, I think, very good. And so I added them into the deck, took out some other things, and reached the list that you see before you. So this is a Lightsworn list. This is, I guess, a Twilight Sworn list technically, because it is playing the Chaos stuff. But I do really like this approach to the deck in this format. I'm not going to go into the nitty gritties and do a video for pure Lightsworn versus Zombie Sworn versus all these different Lightsworn variants. Just know that if your deck wants things in graveyard, you can play a Lightsworn package, and it works out pretty well. And I just sort of lean towards Chaos, so that's what I went with here. So let's go through the card by card breakdown and see what sort of cards I'm playing here. So for the darks, we've got double Chaos Orc, because this thing is very, very good. Just extension, banishing a thing, very nice. DD Crow, because this is a pretty good hand trap in the format, stopping other Lightsworn decks from doing Lumina plays or Wolf plays, as well as just, you know, being a good thing to just get a dark engrave. And also, if you mill this thing, it's not the worst thing in the world. Although it's not ideal, but it is another dark engrave for Dad, which we are playing because we do have graveyard modulation. Even if we don't have the most darks in our deck, we can also get more darks there with one of our 2 Foolish Burials. We've also got Gores here, which is great to just bring out off an attack. You can also play Trag if you want to, and we are playing Trag in the side deck here just to sort of test that out. But I do like Gores a little bit better because, you know, it's going to be a big guy no matter how many cards you have in your hand. And I do think Lightsworns can go a bit low in terms of cards in hand, especially if they're doing Lumina plays. So yeah, I like Gores a little bit better in this deck, but Trag does have its use cases. We've also got Triple Honest, because this thing is one of the things that makes this deck so strong. Just always having the threat of an Honest and basically making your opponent question, do I attack, do I not, is just so, so devastating and very, very good for this deck. We've also got a Jane Lightsworn Paladin here. I guess I've sort of transitioned off the darks, but yeah, I'm just going through the Lightsworns as well, I guess, now. But Jane is a card you could probably cut, but it's another name, and there are some weird use cases where you do want the extra 300. And at the end of the day, it's just a big body that mills you too, so that's not terrible. For our other one-off Lightsworns, we've got an Arcus here. Preventing your opponent from being able to target your Lightsworns is very nice. You can't target as well, which means you can't use like a Lumina while Arcus is up on field, but it's still very nice, and again, milling 2 is pretty good as well. It's also got a pretty big defense, so if you do need to set it and then your opponent attacks into it and can't clear it, then potentially you have fodder for Celestia here. Celestia is very, very good at just blowing up the board, and honestly, I could potentially play more of this. I chose to play things like Sork instead, but if you wanted to pivot away from the Chaos angle, you could take out the dark stuff and put in more Celestias, because Celestias are pretty busted. But I do like Sorks for being a special summon here instead, even though they don't mill. But moving on, we've also got an Aaron here to deal with our defense position monsters, like if your opponent's sitting on a Spear Reaper, or if they're playing Recruiters, this thing can be very, very strong. You can also deal with things like Vayu, right? If someone sets a Vayu and you attack into it with Aaron, then that goes back in the deck instead of the grave. We've got a Garoth here as well, just to get some draws in here if you can swing it. But it's also just an 1850 guy, which is pretty nice. And part of the reason why we can play so many one-ofs, like we're also playing only one Lila and only one Raikou, part of the reason why we can play all these one-ofs is because we've got Triple Charge. And Triple Charge is giving that consistency, just allow you to play like one-ofs and then fill up the rest of the deck with whatever else you want. Now, the only Lightsworns we're not playing one-ofs are the Luminas, because you can do Lumina chains where you Lumina, bring back Lumina, Lumina, bring back Lumina, and then Lumina, bring back another thing. So that's basically extra damage that you got on board and extra mills if they manage to stick. We also got triple Wolf because you want to be milling this, you don't want to be searching this. So we want to guarantee, or not guarantee, but maximize our chances of milling that Wolf. And one of the ways we can do that is also using this Plague. Even if we weren't playing all the other dark stuff, I think having Plague is very, very good. It allows you to stack wolves on top of your deck to then mill them with your Lightsworns, bring out an extra guy, and also go into some synchro plays, which is very good too. The last monster we're playing is Triple Necrogardener, which, like Wolf, you just want to mill, but you can pitch this as well. And this being able to stop an attack just gives you another way to play on your opponent's turn. I should also mention the Judgment Dragons here. I mean, these go without saying. Boss monster of the deck for good reason. A 3k body that you can bring out pretty easily, that can blow up the board as well. Just very, very good card. For the other cards here, we got Double Foolish along with the Triple Charge. Foolish can basically be like a pseudo charge because you just Foolish a wolf and then get out that wolf, and there you go. You can either tribute that for like Celestia or just have a big guy and do stuff with that. We got Heavy Storm to blow up our opponent's back row. We got Triple Solar Recharge. This can be used to pitch wolves or pitch whatever else, and also get more cards in grave and more cards in hand. So very nice in that regard. And then we've got a very small trap lineup. Generally, Lightsworns don't play too many traps because they don't really need to a lot of the time. Honest and the Necrogardeners can be their own forms of traps. And Beckoning Light is one of the few that we do play because Beckoning Light can basically convert into more Honest, or it can convert into a JD, or it can convert into whatever Lightsworn you want, which is another reason why we don't really need to play a ton of Lightsworns. We can just sort of play one-ofs of all of them, and once they go to grave, we can get them back with Beckoning if we need to. We've also got a TD to blow up the board, and a dash shoot to spin back a card from our opponent's hand. For the side deck, we got a variety of different options. Cider if we're going second, Double Crow if we're up against a more graveyard-reliant deck, or we want more Darks engraved to turn on our Sorks and our Dad more often. We've got Double Kaiku as well, which can be good against certain graveyard-reliant decks, or just decks that have trouble dealing with a big beater. Double Trag in case we want to mix up our lineup here in terms of hand traps. We've got a Chimera Tech. If we're bringing in Cider against a machine deck, we want to bring this into the extra deck as well. For the spells, we got Braincon. Again, if we're going second, this is mainly when you'd use it, but it can be good against certain decks as well. Cold Wave if we want to shut down what our opponent's playing. True Nade for a similar purpose. MST if we're dealing with their back row. Mind Crush if they're searching out a lot, and then Decree if they're on a super heavy back row deck. This can be very good. We can potentially Decree and then set up for things like a True Nade or a Heavy or a Judgment Dragon play. For the extra deck, we're not really going to go into too much here, honestly, because we just have the one Plague. So there's not really much, that we're going to be going into often here, but it is good to have these things just in case, especially if you side in the Braincon, take your opponent's tuner, then you can do more stuff with that as well. So for our extra deck, we just have pretty standard stuff. I'm not going to dwell on this too much. Catastor, in Fairy Dragon, Avenging Night Parchath because we are playing a light deck, Black Rose Dragon, Bryanak, Colossal Fighter, Darkened Dragon, which we can actually make with the Chaos Orc in a Plague, so it won't come up that often, but it can come up. Flamvel Iroquois, we've got a Goyle Guardian, Android, Mistworm, Red Dragon Archfiend, Stardust, Tempest Magician, and Thought Ruler. And Tempest Magician we can also make with things like Lila. So that's going to do it for the deck breakdown. Let's dive into some games, see how it goes. We're going to face off against Jim Bob first here. If you're guests on the channel, always a pleasure to have them on. And we had some epic RPS before this. Unfortunately, that did not get captured in the replay, or I just skipped it in setting up the replay. But we have a crazy hand. We are going second, so they could draw Dash Hoot or things like that. But like Double Honest, Charge, Chaos Orc, Garroth, like this hand is nuts. Like this hand is so good. They're going to bring out a Neos Alias, so they're on hero beat, and they're going to set one pass back. We draw a Solar Recharge, so we could go for that first, which we will indeed do. Pitching that Garroth, drawing 2, milling 2, and we do mill a Wolf. We mill Wolf and Lumina, so that is a pretty good combination there. Wolf can come back, and it will indeed, so no DD Crow there to stop that. We're going to think about exactly what to do here. We could potentially go for like a Lila, pop the background stuff, but I feel like the background might be Gemini Spark, which would be kind of rough. We're going to go for this charge here. Mill 3, search out Luna, and now we can actually force out that back row if it is something like Gemini Spark, because we can go for Chaos Orc and banish the Alias, probably banishing the Dad and then either the Garroth or the Lumina. Just try and clear that out of the way before we go for a big play here. And we're going to think about exactly what to do. We are indeed going to do that play. Bring out Chaos Stork in attack mode, and then try and banish that alias. I think I should have probably brought this out in defense mode, because if I am attacking in here, and let's say that Packer has Mirror Force and not a Gemini Spark, then this might be a bit awkward, but it is indeed the Gemini Spark. And they're going to pop the Wolf instead of the Sork. That means that we can use our Sork later there if we want to. We're actually going to pitch the TT, because we've got enough hand traps in hand that, like, we don't need the actual trap, especially since we're setting up a big board. But we're going to go pitch, bring back Garroth here. If we had banished the Garroth instead of Lumina, we could have brought back Lumina, but, there's no guarantee that our Wolf would have been in grave instead of, nothing, or I guess the Sork. So I felt like banishing the Lumina would have been better here, and I stand by that. I do bring back the Garroth because it is less damage, but it does get us potential draws and more mills here at the end of the turn. So we're going to attack in. We don't really fear Gores because we got Double Honest in hand, but we're just going to try and get in damage here where we can. We are going to mill 3 off Lumina, and we mill another Lightsworn name, which is pretty nice. Then we mill 2 off Garroth. No names there, unfortunately. And our heavy is gone, so our opponent can just sort of set their entire hand if they want to. But I still feel like we're in a very, very good spot. They're going set 1, set 2, set 3, set 4, pass back. Now that heavy's gone, they don't need to worry about that. And we're just going to go for Lumina, pitch Jane, target Aaron, and hope that Aaron can do something here. They're going to bottomless that, though, so that's a bit worrying. We're going to switch our Sork to defense and try and attack into that set with the Garroth. And the Snowman here is going to pop the Lumina there. So that will prevent us from getting those mills at the end of the turn. We're going to go for Sork, try and banish the Snowman Eater, but they're going to book that down, and they're going to pass back to us. So this is a bit awkward here because, we need that face up to banish with the Chaos Sork, and they don't necessarily have to do that. I mean, we could just attack into it next turn with the Sork, but we potentially play into their back row if we do that. We might have to, though. So we are just going to switch the Sork to attack in, and unfortunately they did draw the Mirror Force, so they are able to pop our whole board. But we don't have any, face-up monster for them to pop with Snowman Eater. We have Gores, too, so, like, that can come down next turn and be a bit of a threat if they do mount an offensive pressure here. So I feel pretty good about this. We draw into Plague, so that's another good card to have. We're just going to go for Sork and try and get rid of that set. Or actually, yeah, I guess we're... So I was thinking, like, maybe we'd attack in here, but I guess we're going to go for Dark End, probably. Either Dark End or Stardust. But yeah, we're going to sync off here. And we're going to go for Stardust instead of Dark End. I think that makes sense because if they've got like Bottomless or something, then the Stardust, or then Dark End will not be able to pop the Snowman here. Whereas if they got Bottomless, Stardust can negate that. Dim Priz would be annoying here. But yeah, they do have it. I still think it's worth going for that. And we do have further Plague plays later on if we want to go for that. And again, we've got Gores in hand, so I'm not too worried about what they're going to do here. They're going to attack in with an Honest here. And we are going to drop the Gores. Yes, they can just flip up Snowman Eater, but if they do that, we can just switch our token to attack and attack into the Snowman Eater. Unfortunately, they've got a Smashing Ground instead, so that might be a little bit awkward here. We do draw Raikou. We're just going to switch the token to attack for our Honest and then set the Raikou. They do have to pop a face-up with the Snowman Eater, so they can't pop our Raikou there. And so they are going to pop the token, which is actually like relatively good for them because, with this double Honest in hand, that token and attack was actually pretty good. We draw a Wolf, which would not normally be the best, but we do have Plague to stack it, so we can go for Plague, stack that Wolf, and then flip up the Raikou. Now, if this gets negated, that would be really bad for us, because, then they prevent the mills from happening. But luckily, it's not negated. We're able to pop a Dust Tornado, mill 3, mill that Wolf, get that Wolf out there, and we should be in a pretty good spot. Well, they TT, but that's fine. Yeah, we still have double Honest in hand. We can run out 1 Honest, attack in for 11, and then add that back to hand at the end of the turn. So, yeah, I feel pretty good about this. They are going to summon out their Honest, attack in for 11. So we're just sort of like going back and forth with this Honest stuff here. But I think we're still in a good spot because we have double Honest and they've only got 1 Honest. We also have this Charged Light Brigade, which is going to be pretty good there for us. We can go for charge, mill 2 more Necros. So, yeah, we still have 3 Necros in grave. I didn't mention that before because there's never really been an opportunity to use it because we're not going to use it on an Honest poke there. We search out the Lumina there. I think we can go for game. We pitch an Honest, and we go for Wolf instead of going for another Lumina to then go for the other Wolf, which would have also been lethal. But I decided to only go for the Wolf because I feel like this played around Gores a bit better. Because if we go Lumina, attack in, and they drop Gores, we just Wolf into the token, and then if they attack their Gores into our monster, we've got Honest for that. if they wait until the wolf attack to go for Gores, then we get them down to very low and Honest just kills them there. So I felt like this would have played around Gores a little bit better, whereas if they had Gores and we went for Lumina Wolf, then we'd just be dead. If they had Gores, or we wouldn't be dead, but like we'd be in a much worse position. So I felt like just going for the more conservative Lumina play would have been a bit better. But our opponent scooped up either way, so it worked out there. But yeah, we're going to go into game 2, see how it goes here. This is also a very, very good hand. We got double Lumina and a Wolf. We do have the Sidra in the deck for going second. Our opponent's going to E-Call for a Stratos, searching out an Ocean there. So that's a bit threatening if they can actually manage to maintain that Ocean. We're going to go for Sidra here. They do have Bottomless for that, but we can go just summon out this Lumina and mill a couple cards. We can't use this effect to pitch the Wolf, bring back Wolf, because we have no Lightsworn in graveyard before we activate the effect. So we're just going to leave it here. And, you know, if it does get popped somehow, we do have another Lumina in hand to then bring that back. So it's not the worst thing in the world. And they're just providing a setup later. If they try and run over it by battle, we do have Honest. So we can just do that as well. They're going to attack in with Stratos. Given that they summoned out Alias here, they might have Spark. So if I do go, like, Honest here, you know, get Lumina over the Stratos, they could just use Spark to then pop the Lumina afterwards. I think it would still be worth it for me to do. So I think this is actually a misplay, not using the Honest here. But I decided to just let that go through and hold on to the Honest. I guess because I think, like, okay, next turn I can start clearing things with, like, Chaos Orc and things like that. But the issue is that now if they've got the Spark, they can use it to interrupt our plays. Whereas here, if they wanted to Spark the Lumina afterwards, then it would have been on their turn. So then we have potentially one last thing to play through on our turn. So yeah, I think this was a major misplay on my part, and they do have Dust Shoot as well, so that's going to make things even harder for us here. They're unfortunately not going to send back the Wolf. That would be the ideal for us, but it doesn't make any sense for them. But yeah, they're going to send back that Lumina, and now things are a bit tricky. We are pretty low. We do have this Sork access, but to do that, we'd have to banish our Plague, which is also kind of rough. Like, ideally, we'd be able to Plague back and then stack the Wolf and then summon an Aaron and have that mill at the end of the turn. That'd be the ideal, but if they do need to have Gemini Spark, which is very likely they do, that play is not the best. So then we're basically draw locked into a Wolf. If they pop the Aaron, they get rid of the Plague, and then we haven't really done anything with that. So we are going to try and priority banish the Alias here. I could have also priority banished the Stratos. The awkward thing with that is that it doesn't bait out the Spark, because they can just wait until later to use the Spark. So I would rather just try and bait out the Spark right now so I can actually do my plays. And yeah, I do lose this Orc there, but I can at least go for Aaron and get some mills in here. So I'm going to mill 3, and I actually get lucky and mill a Wolf. So that Wolf will indeed come back. But you can sort of see that, like, I've been playing on the back foot here, you know, after I let my Lumina go. So I really should have Honested that. I do have Honest for later, to be fair. But I still think it would have been better just to keep the Lumina on field and force my opponent to deal with it rather than me having to deal with what they've got now. But they're going to run into the Aaron, and I am going to Honest that just to keep up the board presence here, keep the Miller going. Unfortunately, they do have Smashing to stop the Aaron there. They're going to set 2, pass back. We're going to recharge here, pitching the Wolf, drawing 2, milling 2. We mill a Necro, which is pretty good there. We could also go for Lumina, pitching Honest, and bring back Aaron and trying to make something happen there. But I'm not the most hopeful that, you know, it'll be able to get through their back row. So I'd rather just attack them their set, which is likely Snowman Eater, and keep the Honest in hand for later. And it is indeed the Snowman Eater. So I'm just going to summon out Lumina here, not using priority. I maybe should have used priority just to stick a card on field, especially if they had Hero Blast there. Might have been better to use priority. I also could have just waited. I could have held the Lumina for a point where I was going to use priority just to play around Hero Blast even more. But unfortunately, they are going to Hero Blast this Lumina. So I've been playing this one a bit poorly into Hero Beat. Hero Beat's one of those decks that you kind of have to know what they potentially have in order to play well against it. And I'm just sort of stumbling into pitfalls left and right here, unfortunately. They do have Ocean. They're able to attack in 15, set 1, pass back. We have Foolish, though, so we can go for a Wolf play here, which we are indeed going to do. Send that Wolf, and then we can bring it back here to try and run over the Ocean. Will that connect? It looks like it will not. It's going to get booked down, which is quite unfortunate. We do have Necro Gardener to stop one attack in there if they try and attack over that Wolf. But, you know, they've got another normal summon, and we've only got 1 Necro, so it's not looking too good for us, especially when they summon out Kaiku. I mean, that's just brutal, because Kaiku can just get rid of that Necro, get rid of one of our Lightsworn names. So now we only have 1, 2, 3 names engraved. So if we draw JD off the top, it's not going to be ideal. So we're in a bit of a tough spot. I mean, Jane does get us out of this situation, though. I mean, summon out Jane, and we're going to attack into the Kaiku. Yes, with Ocean on field, they could potentially bounce a hero, but if you look at their graveyard, they don't have any heroes left engraved there, so they just have to bounce the Ocean, which is not ideal here. It does mean that, like, if they're able to clear the Jane next turn, like, let's say they got another Smashing or a Book or something like that to play around the Honest in our hand, then it's going to be rough for us because they can bounce back that Stratos again if they summon that out to, try and get over the Jane that way. But I do think it's still worth getting rid of the Kaiku instead of the Ocean. We mill a Necro. We got very, very lucky. Our mills this game have been just so good, and they're really bailing us out of some pretty bad play. So, that's one of the things about Lightsworn too, is that, like, in this format, there's just so many opportunities for the deck to bail you out. And the deck often does bail you out, right? And I'm not saying that, like, you can just play head empty, right? You need some level of play to actually succeed with this deck. But if you do make some mistakes over the course of the game like we did here, you can still actually dig your way out of things. So we're going to run over that Ocean, mill 2 more, not the best mills there. But if we draw into a Lightsworn later with recharge, maybe something can happen. Our opponent's going to summon out an Alias, and we are going to actually Necro that because our Jane can actually run over the Alias next turn if we're able to attack. So I think this is fine to do. We draw into another recharge, which is not ideal. We're just going to attack into that Alias, try and clear it, and that does indeed connect. So we're going to go to the end phase here. We don't get many good mills here either. So we're not having the best mills here at this point in the game, but we got our mills early. And if we draw another Lightsworn, we got recharge to make things happen there. Unfortunately, our opponent is going to Miracle Fusion here, and that will be the end of the game. Because, even if we had Honest, the Abzor would die, and then our board would get popped. They could run him with Alias. But we don't have it, so we just got to admit defeat. But you could see that if I had drawn a little bit better at the end there, despite my bad play earlier in the game, we could have actually made something happen, which is kind of wild to say. I do think that if I had played that better, like if I had, used the Honest on the Lumina just right off the bat, I think that we would have been in a much better spot there overall. And we wouldn't have had to, like, waste our Plague for a Chaos Orc and things like that. So that's also a downside to using Chaos Orc in this deck, where you don't play as many Darks. Sometimes you do have to make a tough choice and banish something like a Plague or a Necro to get it out on field. And you just got to hope that it's good enough to, be worth making that sacrifice. But I think in general, if you're making that play because you have the choice of whether to make it or not, it's probably going to be fine. But we are going first with Dust Shoot, so this game is probably going to be GG. We're going to start with a charge, mill 3, and then add a Lightsworn to hand. We add Raikou, and unfortunately they have Crow for our Wolf, so we can't bring that out. But Raikou is just fine on its own. We can set that Raikou, set the Dust Shoot. We don't want to set Beckoning because we don't have enough lights engraved to justify it right now. But later on, Beckoning, pitching Necro will be very nice. We do have this Dust Shoot here, so we're able to see their hands. See, they get Miracle Fusion, Hero Blast, Call the Hunt, Honest, and Book of Moon. So not really good for them just yet. They kind of need a hero to turn this hand online. That's sort of one of the flaws with Hero Beat, is that sometimes you just don't draw into your heroes, even though you are playing multiple ways to search them. And so it can be a bit awkward if that happens. We are going to draw a Soul Recharge, so we're going to pitch this Arcus, draw 2, mill 2, see what pops up. We milled 2 Honest, so that's a bit unfortunate, but we do have this Beckoning to bring them back. So it should ultimately be fine. We're going to banish the Light and Dark for a Sork here, and then we're going to run out Naren as well. This is about half their life points, so it should be fine there. And if they do drop Gores, we do have Raikou for it. So we're also going to set this Beckoning here in end turn. Mill 3, milling a Wolf as well. JD engraved to get back with Beckoning as well. I mean, things are just getting better and better for us here. So they're going to draw into a Stratos, which does get them into a hero, so that is something at least. They're going to search out an Alias and attack into our Aaron. We're going to go for Beckoning here, adding back an Honest and an Honest, because double Honest here is not quite lethal, but it gets them very, very close. So I think it is worth doing it. And they're going to chain Book, so that actually does get around that. So, good play on their part, but we still do have this Honest, and yeah, I mean, that's a lot of damage. If we go like Wolf into the Stratos there with double Honest, is that lethal? No, that's, no, it's 200 off lethal. So, yeah, we're in a very, very good spot, though. And yeah, they're just going to scoop it up because we have Raikou as well. So even if they set like Call the Haunted that we know about, it's not really going to help them here. Yeah, they've got Alias, Miracle Fusion, Call the Haunted, Hero Blast. We know the entire hand. Hero Blast is offline. They could set Hero Blast and Call the Haunted if they wanted to. But even if they call back the Stratos after we attack into it with the Wolf, we still win there. And that is probably what we do. I mean, we could banish the Stratos if we really wanted to shut off the Call of the Haunted, but we win by just attacking in with Wolf, so it's not really worth it. So yeah, that's just the end of the game for them, which is kind of rough. Sometimes that happens, but Lightsworn is a deck that can go fast if it really mills and draws well, and that's kind of what happened here. So, just showing off how crazy this deck can be. And I mean, this deck, I think, is honestly my favorite deck in the format just because of how crazy it can get. Yes, there is some luck aspect involved. But if you play well, you can sort of mitigate those luck aspects. We didn't play well game 2, and I think that's why we lost there. But I think games 1 and 3 we did pretty well, all things considered at least. But we got another replay to show off against a bit more of a jank deck. I feel like Hero Beat is like tier 2 on the edge of tier 1, so I felt like fine showing that for a showcase of what the deck could actually do. But yeah, maybe I should have gotten a Blackwing or Vayu deck against this, but it's kind of tough to get games in this format lately, so I just decided to take what I could get. Our opponent is going to be on a plant style deck, so this is either going to be like a Gigavi style deck, or it's going to be like Amaryllis probably. But our opponent's going to go double Lone Fire into Dandelion, set 1 pass. So not the most explosive opening for them, so I feel pretty good about this. We're just going to set a Necro Garden a pass because having that engraved is pretty good. We also could just hold everything in hand, drop Gores, have Beckoning for later to pitch our Necro and our Plague. But I feel fine doing this because I feel like they don't necessarily have the most aggressive pressure here. And I'm fine just, getting that Necro engrave eventually. They do have a limit reverse, though, so they're able to bring out the Lone Fire, tribute the Dandy, go for a copy plant here, so now they can do a synchro play, which is kind of awkward. But we do have Gores if they make a huge push. They're going to think about this, and they're going to send all their Monster Grave for a Bryanak. They could have copied the Lone Fire with the copy plant, but maybe they didn't want their tokens on board in case we're like on Blackwings or something. Although the tokens actually wouldn't pair with Blackwings, but I guess like we could have like a Bora play to, pierce into them. But they're going to go for Bryo, pitching to bounce back our Necro, and also pitching to bounce back their limit reverse, so they can do the play later on as well. So that's kind of a cute interaction there. They're attacking for 23. We're going to drop Gores. They can bounce this back to hand with the Bryo if they want to here, which they might do. But instead, they're just going to set 1 and pass back to us. So we are in a pretty good spot, especially when we draw into a charge here. So we can search out a Lila if we want to, and we are indeed going to go for that Lila there. And bring that out, try and pop the back row. It is indeed the limit reverse, so they didn't really have a good way to, protect the Bryo there. I guess they didn't want to just bleed out cards, continually bouncing the Gores and the token. But yeah, so this will bring back Dandelion. Dandelion will get popped, so that'll leave them 2 tokens though. However, we can attack into 1 token to keep them off of a Titanial Tribute summon next turn. And then we can get over Bryo with our Gores. We're going to set Beckoning now because now we actually have... actually, we still don't have enough lights to do anything with it, I guess. But it's just there for later, I guess. Like if they attack into our token, I guess the Honest can buff things up. And then we can potentially get back that. But yeah, I don't know. Saying Beckoning might have been a mistake. I will be completely honest. This game, I was not 100% in it. Like, I make some pretty bad plays later on, which you will see here. So, like, whenever I'm pointing out my opponent's misplays there with, or potential misplays, just know that I am also misplaying, like, very hard in this game, which you've already seen with the Beckoning set, but I do it later on as well to much greater effect. So, that is another thing to note, that Lightsworn can sort of lose to itself. If you are just not thinking about what you're doing, you can just throw the game entirely. So, it's good to keep in mind. We're just going to leave things as they are, attack into their token, and then attack into their set, which is a Spirit Reaper, which is a bit unfortunate. We are just going to try and get the mills going here to hope that, we can deal with that. Also, by summoning out Arcus, we've got a 3 and a 4, and if we summon out Plague next turn, we can go into Mistworm, which is a play to sort of bounce their board and potentially go for lethal. So I feel fine about this. If they attack over our Lightsworns, we do have Honest. We can't protect the Lila, but we can protect everything else. They're going to think about this a bit, and they're going to go for Braincon on the Gores, and that's going to be fine. They're going to think about this some more and go for a Sangan as well, switching the Reaper to attack and attacking into the Lila there. We're going to think about this because we could go for Beckoning and then like Necro to protect it, but they've got Sangan to attack over either way, so it's not really worth doing. So we'll just let that go through. And then they're going to attack into our Arcus. We could let that go, but I'm just going to honest this. I think this was a mistake in hindsight. I think I should have held the honest because I do have Lumina to bring things back from grave next turn to reestablish my board. Or I could just attack into Reaper twice with the Gores and the token, and just deal lethal damage, actually, if they didn't have anything, which I feel like they might not have anything because they didn't use that back row. But if they did, I mean, it turned out it's limit reverse call on, so they did indeed not have anything. So I feel like this was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. I just sort of went head empty and was like, oh, my Lightsworn's getting attacked. I need to protect it. But that was a big misplay on my part because I could just push for lethal next turn. So, yeah, that was a bit rough there. Or I guess it wouldn't be lethal because they wouldn't have taken from the Arcus here. But I could have summoned out something else to make it lethal if I wanted to push into a potential Torrential Tribute. Yeah, it wouldn't quite be lethal, even if I honested with the token. But yeah, they're going to go for call here on a Titanial as well. And as a note, this thing is still at 3,900 from the honest. So, unfortunately, they're running it in here, and that's not going to work out the best for them. So again, we're both misplaying left and right. It happens, right? Everyone has their off games, and this is definitely an off game for both me and my opponent. They're going to go for a copy plant play here with limit reverse, and they're going to go into a black rose, try and blow up the board. We are going to chain beckoning to that, so we're able to get back some Lightsworn stuff. And here's where I make like a huge mistake. I just go for Lumina, and Lila, because I'm like, oh yeah, I'll just go for a lethal push next turn. They say against her Battle Fader though, so I won't be able to make that lethal push next turn. And I just sort of like forget that going into this. I'm just like, oh yeah, I can go Lumina, pitch Lumina, and then Lumina, pitch another thing, bring something else back. Just go for like triple Lumina and Arcus, and this will be, that's not even lethal here too. So like, this isn't even worth going for. I'm just putting myself on a 2-turn clock because I'm milling 11 cards here. And yeah, so this is just dumb of me. Like, I don't know why I'm doing it, honestly. Because I'm very likely to mill into a wolf. So even if I mill into a plague, I can't do those plays. I do indeed mill into a wolf. So like, this is just, there's no reason for me to do this. I have the game basically on lock at this point, and I just completely throw it out the window. So again, this deck can sometimes just lose to itself. Or not to itself even, but to just player error, which I definitely did here. This was just completely me throwing. But that happens sometimes, it is what it is. And, the important thing is not to deny. The important thing is try and learn from that and, just get better in the future. So I think I do play the remaining 2 games of this match a lot better. Not perfectly by any means, but I think a lot better. And, I want that game there for clarity, both to show that I'm not like the best duelist in the world. I never claimed to be infallible. I'm just trying to play these decks and learn along with y'all, and just have fun doing it and showing off some cool decks. And also to just illustrate that, like, you do have to be careful about self-milling. If you're playing well with Lightsworn, you don't really have to worry about that as much. But if you're not thinking as much about it, you can indeed mill yourself out. So that can be a bit awkward. Anyways, this hand is goated. This is such a good hand. We've got Foolish for Wolf into Celestia next turn. We've got Raikou to pop something. DD Crow to stop what they're doing from grave. I did side in more DD Crows here because they do seem to just be looping things from graveyard. So I felt like that would be pretty good. And JD as well. So this hand, Gore's on top of that. Like, this hand is just so good. I don't know how we can lose with this hand. So they're going to go for a charge here, and they do mill a Dandy. So that might be a bit awkward. They do search out Lumina, which we can just stop with the DD Crow if we want to. Not that they've got like necessarily the best thing to bring back with Lumina. But if we do want to stop it, we can. They're going to think here, and they're going to ultimately decide to go into a debris here, target the Dandy. We are going to banish that with the Crow, so that way they can't do a big play here. And now they're in kind of a tough spot. They're going to attack into our set. It's Raikou, so we're just going to pop the debris. Mill 3. We mill into a wolf, which they actually can't DD Crow if they had it because this is damage step. I mean, it's just like, it's just too good. I mean, we got Celestia in hand as well, so we can tribute over that wolf for the Celestia if we want to. We could also recharge it, which we might do, but I decided ultimately just to go for Celestia. I'm not sure what I'd be digging for at this point. So I go for Celestia, try and pop those 2 back rows, see what it is. Mill 4 for the cost, which does come first indeed. They're going to go for Fiend Comedian here, so this could actually be relatively bad for us if they're able to banish our entire graveyard. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world though, because we are able to have Foolish Burial to set up more Lightsworn stuff. So again, it wouldn't be the worst, but it would be kind of annoying for us given that we do have JD here. But yeah, they're going to mill a tails after they call heads. So they're going to get a fair amount of mills themselves, which is pretty good for them. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, they're probably wishing that they could have gotten the banish through here instead. Now, if we were playing this safe, we could just hold on to JD, leave it in hand, and just, have it for when we really, really need it. But I want to get a clock going. And I do see BrainCon Engrave. I think that was milled off their Fiend Comedian. So I'm not afraid of that. So I'm just thinking, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to go for JD. I'm going to go for Wolf. And I'm just going to try and get in a ton of damage here. And that's what I do. I could just leave it at this, honestly. I think it probably would have been best for me just to leave it at this. But I'm a greedy guy. I'm just going to go for it. And I think sometimes with this deck, you do have to be a bit greedy. Now with this hand, I'm not sure I needed to be greedy. But I'm just going to go for it anyways. Get him for 3k. Mill 4 in the end phase. And pass back to them. So I'm feeling pretty good about this. If they do set up anything threatening, I can just blow up the board with JD and get in for 3k as well. They're going to go for a Pot of Avarice here. And they're going to target their Double Debris, a Puppet Plant, a Card Trooper, and a Battle Fader. So Battle Fader going back in deck is a bit annoying for us because they're able to simply stop our big pushes here. But I think we should still be fine. They're going to think about this a bit, and they're ultimately going to decide to set one, set another, pass back to us. We draw heavy, which we don't actually need to use here. We can just blow up the board with JD. And unfortunately, we hit a Sangan, so they will be able to search out a Battle Fader, stop whatever attacks we're doing here. But we're just going to attack in. We're just going to force them to use the Battle Fader. Main 2, we're just going to pay another 1,000 because we are feeling fine on life points. Mill 4, mill another Wolf, bring back that Wolf, and then pass back to them. I don't want them to go into a Kai's play if they've got Kai's, which they might have given how much graveyard recursion they have. They're going to set 2, pass back to us. We draw another recharge, which is dead. But we're just going to go for JD again. They've got Call to bring back Sangan, which can probably get them another search of something like Battle Fader, which is a bit annoying for us. But we do hit a Raikou there, so I do feel pretty good about that play. They're ultimately going to find a Lone Fire, which means that they might only be playing the one Battle Fader, which is pretty good information for us here. We're going to attack in for 3k, mill 4, and pass back to them. Necro Garnet Engrave is pretty nice, even though that is our first for some reason. But we should be okay here just to probably clean things up. Let's see what they do. They're just going to bring out Lone Fire, and they're going to mid-defeat. Yeah, I guess they didn't really have a way to deal with JD. So I think we got a bit too aggressive with JD. I think we probably shouldn't have done that. But at the same time, it was a valid course of option as well. And it sort of put in work there. It got us good mills. It allowed us to pop the board a couple times. So it ultimately was unable to be contested by our opponent. This hand is a bit worse than we've had in the past. We do have Lumina, so that's pretty nice. We do have Charge. We do have Dad if we can get that set up. But it is a bit worse. They're going to go for double Lone Fire into Titanial, and then they're going to pass back to us. We draw into a Wolf, which, again, not the best. We're going to go for a charge here. Mill 3 Darks, exactly. So we do have Dad online. For whatever reason, I just completely missed this. And I just tunnel in on Plague being able to stack for Wolf. And I'm like, oh boy, I can Plague stack Wolf, and then I can mill that and blah, blah, blah. But I don't know why I didn't just bring out Dad. I should have just brought out Dad. Dad trades for Titanium, either with a banish or just crashing in. And I think it's just worth doing. I think that I'm like, okay, well, if I go for a Plague play here, then I can just go into Catastor and, clear the Titanium that way while saving my Dad for a better point in time when I can actually get more value off it. But I think in this game state, I kind of need to just go for Dad now, clear the Titanium, because if they do have DD Crow exactly, then I'm in a really bad spot. And I don't really have a good way to get out of it. But I go for Plague first, stacking the Wolf, and they do have DD Crow exactly. So I'm just in a really bad spot. I summon out Jane just to get some mills in here, milling 2, bring back that Wolf. I'm going to try and bluff an Honest here, which occasionally does work. But yeah, I should have just dropped Dad. I don't know why I didn't drop Dad. So I guess earlier when I said that, I play pretty well for the rest of the match, I just was lying out of the side of my face, apparently. But they're going to Mindcon our Wolf and go into a 6 here, going for a Bryanak. So now they can actually bounce the Jane and prevent an Honest play. They also will pitch a Hedge card for that. So Hedge card can actually protect one of their monsters from an Honest, even though they'll still take the damage. But that Bryanak's going to attack in, and then they're not going to attack him with Titanial to play around Gores. They're also going to go for an Avarice here, so they're going to get rid of their Plague and Hedge card, which I am fine with. I am perfectly fine with that. Oh, I guess Hedgeguard only works from hand. So yeah, don't really need to worry about Hedgeguard. But Game Rid Plague, I'm very happy with. Get that thing out of here. I don't want to worry about that in their graveyard. So you just put it back in deck, and they will indeed do that. So they're going to draw 2, pass back to us. We draw Foolish Burial, which I don't really know. Well, actually, we do have something we can do here. We can mill a Dark and potentially get that set up. So we are going to think about this a bit. It's a bit awkward because if we go Foolish, send like a Dark, then they could just be like, oh, they've got Dad, and then just immediately crow us. But they might not have the crow, so that's what we're going to hope for. We're going to go for Lumina first, and actually we're going to try and bait out the crow here. So we're going to go Lumina target Jane, and that's going to be fine by our opponent. So this means that they might not have crow, or they were just holding it because this doesn't actually deal with what they've got here. And we will send a Necro here. And we do give them a little bit of time to potentially crow this before dropping the Dad. Because, I like to give my opponent a little bit of time when something like this happens, because occasionally you get in a situation where you go Foolish, send the 3rd Dark, and you're like, bam, immediately drop Dad. And your opponent's like, wait, I actually want to respond here. And they felt like they didn't have enough time to. But yeah, we are able to bring out the Dad, crash into the Brio, and then they're thinking in battle phase, so they might have like a Trag or something like that. But it looks like that's just going to be fine. And then we're just going to go for the Dark Arm Dragon, try and pop the Titanial. The Titanial can tribute itself to pop the Dark Arm Dragon as well, but I still think it's worth it because we do clear that Titanial, and then we get 5 mills here potentially. They're going to crow, so they did actually have the crow to stop our Dad from coming down, which is why, again, we should have dropped the Dad earlier just to clear the Titanial. If we had done that, we would not even have to worry about this spot. We just didn't do it, which was very, very bad of us. But we do get some mills here, and we actually milled 1 more, which was, we should have milled 5, which is indeed how many there are here. We actually milled 6, so we just put that back and shuffle it back in. But we're going to bring out that wolf there that we milled, and then just pass back to our opponent. So pretty good mill there as well. We did not mill anything like a Necro, so we can't use that. But I'm still feeling pretty good about this, because our opponent might think we have an Honest. And, I mean, if I was them, I'd be clued in the fact that, we didn't attack into the Titanium with one of our other light monsters last turn. Instead, we just let the Dad trade for it. So, they probably know we don't have Honest at this point. But right now, we're in a good enough spot that we don't need to worry about that. We're going to summon an Arcus to play around a Raikou, attack into their set with the Jane, and then attack in for 1,000, 1,200, and then 21. If they do drop Gores, we still get mills here, and also we have a TT to set and try and just blow up the Gores and the token. And given they've got a lot fewer cards than we've got, I feel like that will be a pretty good spot to be in. Or I guess we'd be relatively equal at that point. But we're getting a lot of mills here, which also just sort of acts as a second hand for us in some ways. Anyways, we're going to pass back to our opponent, and they're going to go for a charge of their own, milling 3. Not really good mills there, but they do have Plague in rotation to potentially get something happening there. They're going to search out a Lumina, and they're going to think about this a bit, and they're going to give it a big think, very big thing. Go for Lumina, no priority. They're going to use Plague here and stack and try and get that thing out there into a 5. And yeah, it looks like they're not playing a Catastor in the extra deck. So they're going to admit defeat. They could have gone for Android if they had it. I will say either way, if they had Catastor, I think we would have been in a good spot here. We would have just TT'd the Catastor, blown up the entire board. And then we would have just been in top deck mode. But I sort of just checked to see what is the next couple cards. Because I don't think they should have scooped here. I think they should have just made like Android. And just tried to gain a bit of life potentially if they didn't want to attack, or just attack in and say you don't have an Honest. We would have blown up the board either way because we can't clear the Android without Honest, and we don't necessarily want them gaining life. Next turn we would have drawn into a recharge, pitched the Wolf, drawn 2, milled 2. We would have drawn into JD and Lumina, so we would have won this next turn anyways. They had a Crow in hand, sure, but like we've got more than enough Lightsworn names, especially with our board getting blown up. So yeah, we would have won. But, it's always good to play that out and, see if the opponent actually has what they have or not. We could have easily not drawn this and then been in a bit of a tough spot. But that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it always. Sorry for the bit of a scuffed game here in terms of my play. Like, I definitely was messing up left and right. My head was not in this game. But Lightsworn is a powerful enough deck that it ultimately ended up not mattering for games 2 and 3. And game 1, we would have won if I hadn't failed the deck. So, That's something where I need to just get more reps in with this deck, but I think it's really, really fun. It's my favorite deck that I've played so far in the format. And so I encourage you to try it out if you're interested in it. I don't think there will be too many more Lightsworn format videos after this one. I think I want to show off like frogs, because that's another interesting deck that you can play here, like you can in Edison, and maybe some other sort of Edison transplant into Lightsworn. But we're probably not going to spend too much more time on it, and then we'll be jumping in to both some Edison collabs, hopefully, if I can get those set up, and also some frog games, which will also not be that long, before diving into Star Strike format, which will be for our next monthly tournament on the YGO from Zero Discord server. So if you want to play games like this for yourself, head on over there, and we'll have some tournaments getting started, just ready for you to join. But if you want to support the channel beyond that, you can leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel so that way you know when future videos are coming out. Also, if you want to support me directly, I have a Patreon, linked in the description down below. And if you join the Patreon and get shout out in these videos, so big shout outs to Rinswin, Porkchop Bren Donker, Tyler Compton, GMYFS, Dump Truck Scout Zero, and Damon Hess for supporting me. It really means a lot, and it encourages me to make more videos like this one, especially in times of a bit of a busyness in life, which I've had lately. But hopefully I'll be able to make more videos at a pace similar to how it was in the past in the future. But I hope you enjoyed this one. And until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, signing off. Peace.